Hello again, and welcome back to the Latex Modified Concrete Working Group's weekly briefing on high-performance latex modified concrete. Thanks for joining us. I'm Pat Martins with Bridge Preservation and Inspection Services reporting for the working group. We are continuing with our current video series on pre-pour considerations for HPLMC overlays that owners and installers need to be aware of. Last week we talked about the importance of the pre-pour meeting and some upfront logistical items to be aware of with regard to personnel, equipment, materials, and site access. Today we'll address weather-related considerations and in conjunction with that, the evaporation rate and its importance. Weather is always the X factor in construction. Is it going to rain? Is it going to be too hot or too cold? And what about the wind? Obviously, you don't want to pour while it's raining, and a supervisor can go through a lot of stress trying to outguess the weather prognosticators or the local radar in trying to schedule a concrete pour. LMC is ideally placed between the temperatures of 50 degrees and 80 degrees, with most agency specs allowing between 45 degrees and 85 degrees as a temperature range. And that temperature control applies not only to the ambient temperature but also the LMC in the deck itself. Early in the spring or late in the fall, the temperature can sometimes play havoc with planning of pours. It is also important to understand that beyond the pour, the temperature ranges need to be maintained during the curing period as well, and the installer needs to cover and, if necessary, heat, cool, or insulate the deck and LMC for the first 48 hours following placement. The temperature of the LMC will increase beginning at about 6 hours after placement because of the cement reactions, and the temperature will return to that of the protected overlay deck environment within the first 24 hours. Humidity is actually the friend of latex concrete. Higher humidity helps keep the moisture in the concrete. That's one of the reasons fogging equipment is often a nice attachment to take advantage of on the finish machine, especially if the humidity is low. During the curing period, the wet burlap may need to be re-wetted to maintain a moist environment. Wind, though, is not a friend of latex concrete. It can dry out the concrete surface quickly and result in plastic shrinkage cracking in the surface. All of these weather conditions come into play with regard to what is referred to as the evaporation rate of the concrete. As concrete hydrates, bleed water is produced. This is excess water not needed for hydration that is dissipated out of the mix. Since latex concretes already have less water than conventional Portland cement mixes, there is less available water for bleed. When the rate of evaporation from the deck surfacing is occurring faster than the bleed water is produced, it can lead to plastic shrinkage cracking within the mix. The American Concrete Institute created a nomograph that helps installers understand the risk for shrinkage cracking. This graph takes into account the ambient air temperature, relative humidity, concrete temperature, and wind speed to allow the installer to estimate the evaporation rate of the concrete. States often have restrictions on the evaporation rate for LMC in order to bring the evaporation rate to an acceptable level. Generally, that will be an evaporation rate of 0.1 pounds per square foot per hour or higher. This may mean suspending the pour until such time as the evaporation rate is reduced or providing other cautionary measures to reduce the effects of evaporation. For instance, to help with the effects of lower humidity, a fogging device is used. Or windbreaks may be set up to help reduce the effects of the wind at the site. With smartphones now, atmospheric conditions can be pretty well estimated in order to help determine the approximate evaporation rate. Some of the old timers out there may remember calculating the relative humidity with the use of a sling psychrometer. It is highly recommended to pour LMC at night. This is almost pretty well imperative during the summer or in warmer temperatures. Often the conditions are much more favorable at night, plus the sun is not directly beating down on the surface, drying the deck and the LMC. Nighttime pouring can give the crew a little more time to work with the HPLMC before the initial set. The other nice thing about night pouring is less traffic to contend with and less disruption to the traffic. With staged construction, it also can help to reduce the effects of bridge vibration due to live loads. And that will wrap up this week's topic. Join us again next week as we are going to look at the finish machine setup and use. There are a variety of outlets for you to check out the Latex Modified Concrete Working Group, including YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Hope you have found the niche that best fits you, and subscribe, link, or follow us. You can also email us at lmcwg@bridgepreservation.net. Hey, let's continue to extend the life of our bridge decks by preserving them with HPLMC overlays. See you next time.